Welcome to Two Steps Ahead podcast. I'm Son Edom alongside my partner who still thinks it's Halloween.
Hey guys, I'm Tara Hoke-Shiro. How you doing?
Hey, so got some money?
How much money do you need?
$100?
$100?
Well, I need to get my hair done.
Yeah.
I need to get my hair done.
Yeah, let me see how much hair you're going to get done.
I need to get my hair done. I haven't been to the barber, obviously, in forever. Probably the early 90s. What's a haircut go for these days, you know? Like a dude's haircut.
A dude's haircut is anywhere
Is it like
from
$6 to $8, or has it gone up?
No, I think it's 16 to 40, depending on if you're getting the shave and the hot rag and all the fancy schmancy stuff. But women, I just had my hair done 2 days ago. $160.
Wow.
But that's color and cut and style.
Right. Blow dry? Yes. I remember one time, I think it was Supercuts. Do you remember Supercuts?
Yes.
When Supercuts came out, it was like, okay, you can get a wash, and that was like X amount of dollars. Mm-hmm. Then you get the cut, which was X amount more, and then you can get a blow dry.
It's the same.
You can just walk out of there with a wet head of hair.
Yeah.
And it's less because you don't get the blow dry.
I know people that do that.
Really? They walk out with a wet head of hair.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So what about, so you pay a lot for your hair. I don't pay anything. What about, let's say, and you're not giving me $100 to get my hair cut. Okay, we determined that. So what about, let's say, go to a convenience store, okay? And you go in, you get your energy drink or your coffee or whatever it is you're going to get, okay? And then there's like the person that's maybe less fortunate sitting outside and asking for some funds. What do you do? Do you give them? Or do you look at them and give them the finger? Yeah,
I typically, if I'm walking down the street, I don't like to dig in my purse in public because I'm afraid that someone's going to walk by when I'm, fumbling through money or whatever. Right. I don't feel comfortable doing that. So if I'm walking on the sidewalk, now my husband, on the other hand, will do that. And it cost him we were not where were we? Not Atlanta. I forget. It was a downtown area recently, and it cost him like $20 just to walk down the street because there were so many homeless people, and he was giving money to every person that went by. If someone is standing on the side of the freeway on the exit ramps, because here in California that's just everywhere. The thing. Yeah. I will hand them a bottle of water or a bottle of
whiskey.
Not whiskey, the vitamin water, Gatorade.
They probably hate you.
Or water. They love me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They like that. They actually like that. Really?
They're so grateful. Yeah, always. Really? I always hand them a bottle of water because they're hot. They're standing out there on their, for hours. And they totally appreciate it.
See, when the first freeway exit panhandlers started, mm-hmm. I think, if I remember correctly, it was either a rumor or the news did a feature on one of them, mm-hmm. kind of like a David Goldstein going to spy on them and see mm-hmm. what they do. Mm-hmm. And the guy would sit there and panhandle, and then he'd get into his BMW and drive off.
See, now I hate that story. I've heard that story and so many times because that's the story that people tell as an excuse not to give. Yeah. Right. So that is few and far between. There are people that do that, but it's few and far between. But the general population of people standing there are really in need.
There was one time years ago I was working in Pasadena, mm-hmm. and I was walking the streets, and I'd walk the streets regularly. No, I wasn't hooking.
I was going to say.
No, I wasn't a prostitute.
Streetwalker. No.
And so I'd get to see some people. I just moved back from Nebraska, so I was working part-time at a radio station. Hadn't quite gotten full-time yet, so I needed an extra income. So I was working as a city guide, like a
tour guide?
No, just like they call them guides, but you were more like security for Old Town Pasadena. But you would just kind of walk around if people wanted to know, where something was. Okay. You go cheesecakes down that way. No, the Rose Bowl's not anywhere near here. No, this isn't Pasadena, Texas. Whatever. So you kind of let them know, and then if there was like any type of emergency, maybe you'd be the first responder because you were right there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I was this guy, and so you get to know the panhandlers, mm-hmm. The people that would sit there begging for money, and that was mainly the big thing that you had to deal with was complaints about aggressive panhandling. So you'd be the first one over there to try to diffuse the situation because, passing the police had way too much other stuff to do besides, panhandlers harassing. So that would be the main thing, dealing with the homeless. And so I remember talking to one guy, got to him pretty good, and asked him, hey, do you ever want to get a job? He's like, why would I? like, I don't know why. He told me, I think if I remember correctly, he made like 40 grand a year panhandling. So why would I do anything else? I have to set my own hours, set my own time, and I make a lot of money. I'm thinking to myself, dude, I'm in the wrong job. I'm making like $8 an hour and you're panhandling. I'm going to start hanging out with you. But no, it was just kind of interesting because here somebody was able to, if it was true, I don't know if it's true or not, but he was able to say that he was able to make a comfortable living doing just panhandling. And so why would he want to get a job? The other thing too, because I don't really carry cash. So when people walk by, and they ask for money, I sometimes feel bad because I'm like,
Yeah, I don't carry a lot of cash either.
But I'll be like, hey, if you're hungry, I'll buy you something. Like the other day, I was down in LA Live, and some random kid, it was really bizarre. Some random kid came up to me. He's like, hey, can you buy me a hamburger? I'm like, where's a hamburger joint around here?
Yeah.
And there apparently is one. So I'm like, okay. So, I got him some food. And I'm like, and then he's like, thank you. I'm like, that's fine. So things like that I will do. I don't mean to do that to pat myself on the back, but it's like, if you're hungry, absolutely. But I just don't carry cash. And so it's like giving people out money like that. It's hard to do sometimes, and you just have to walk around. But I always will try to talk to them, not like engage in conversation, but hey, how's it going? Have a nice day. So I don't have anything. Because I think part of it too is that we look at them and we look down on people like that, and we think of them as a second-class person. And I'm offended that they even asked me, and so I'm not even going to look at them or give them the time of day. Well, sometimes just even a, hey, how's it going? Sorry, I just can't help right now. But you know what? Maybe next time, have a good day. Maybe that just makes their day. I don't know. Yeah. But just something like that. What about ever let somebody borrow your car for a period of time?
I have.
Did you get it back?
Did I get it back? Yeah. Yes, I did get it back. Yeah, trying to decide, how to help people is because we get our judgments in the way, and there's a story that there was a lady that came up to me at the gas station one time. She was in this beautiful Indian type wardrobe, the bright colors, and there was like a sequin here and there, and she was just beautiful. She had a child with her, and she said, I need money to get to, I left San Diego, I'm on my way to San Francisco, and we need to put gas in the car. So I immediately, now we've helped the homeless people. My husband has been on the board of directors at the local homeless shelter. He cooks every Saturday. He did for a while during the winter season for 20 years. We've donated a lot financially. So we're in that circle of knowing some of the people that are kind of coming and going. And so my radar was immediately up with this woman, like something didn't sound right. And I said, I don't have any cash, which was true. I don't carry a lot of cash. And I said, there's a local homeless shelter here, right? And she said, oh, I don't need a homeless shelter. We're just going up to the next, city, and we need to, I just need to put gas in the car. And I said, well, why would you? And so here's the people were laughing at me when I was telling them the story later. I started drilling this lady. I said, why would you leave San Diego knowing that you don't have enough money to make it all the way to San Francisco? And she said that she was with friends in San Diego, going to meet friends in San Francisco, like this whole thing. And I was just drilling her. And I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. Why would you leave knowing full well that you don't have enough money in your pocket? That doesn't make sense to me. Well, it's a scam. Right. It was a scam that was happening up there. She was her husband was in this van, and they were just, looking for money. They weren't actually homeless. So that type of thing, it jades people. It's like,
you should have given her a pineapple.
I know, right?
She'd find shelter right away with that upside down pineapple.
Exactly. So, yeah.
See, the other thing too, I remember growing up when I first was learning to drive, hitchhikers, you never pick up hitchhikers.
Right.
Okay. And so I completely ignored that. So I would pick up hitchhikers all the time.
You did?
Yeah, I'd pick them up all the time.
Wow.
So there was this one time, and I never really thought about it, like I'm going to die or anything like that.
Right.
So one time I was living in Nebraska and I was doing radio. It was summer, and during the summertime we had this, they didn't have high school baseball, but they had American Legion baseball, which is high school aged baseball. And then we would travel to Colorado, South Dakota, Wyoming, all through Nebraska, and we'd play games. And so I would be the play-by-play commentator for our radio station covering the games. And so sometimes I'd travel with the team on the bus, or sometimes I'd drive. So one time I was in South Dakota, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. No, I'm sorry, Rapid City, South Dakota, because Rapid City's on the west side. And I'm going to a town in Wyoming. not Sturgis, but just beyond Sturgis. And so I'm driving. It's late at night, and there's like out there on the interstate, if you are familiar with Midwestern interstates, there's no lights. Like here in LA, there's like lights on the freeway so you can see where you're going.
Yeah.
Out there's no lights. It's just the moon or your headlights.
That's where the term BFE comes from, out in the middle of BFE.
Yes, exactly. And that's where it was. So I'm driving on the interstate, and there's nobody out there except me. And I'm usually traveling in the inside lane, which is the closest to the inside meridian, which there is no meridian. It's just, grass. But I happen to be on the outside lane, which would be toward like the exit lane. And I drive by something, and I swear I hit something.
Oh, no.
But I didn't feel any thud or anything, but I'm like, dude, something just went by. First thing I'm thinking is like E.T. came home. So I whip it around, and I come back, and again, I just did a circle on the freeway because nobody's out there. Nobody's coming.
Right.
And if somebody's coming, you can see 8 miles down the road because it's so flat. So I circle back, and I come back up, and I'm going slow. I have the headlights on, and there's like this person just walking basically on the side of the interstate, and there's nothing around. I kid you not. When we say nothing, you can't. If you've never been outside of Southern California, you don't fathom nothing. Imagine going from Staples Center to Disneyland, and have nothing around. Yeah. Okay, I mean, there's nothing. So I pull over, and the person's walking towards the car, and I crack the window. And it's a girl. It's a lady. And I'm like, hey, you okay? She's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, where you going? She's like, I'm going to, I forget what it was, Douglas, Wyoming or whatever. And I'm like, well, I'm going just beyond that. Do you need a ride? And she's like, well, I don't know. Can I trust you? I'm like, can I trust you? I mean, what the hell? And so I'm like, well, what happened? Why are you out here all by yourself? Because, I mean, literally it's miles. I mean, 10 miles, 15 miles from anything.
Right.
How did you get out here? And so she said that she was with her boyfriend or whatever, and he was a biker, and, they got, mad, fought. And so he kicked her off the bike. And so she has her bags, and she's walking to this town that she was going to go to, which I guess she either has friends or family.
Oh, shoot.
So I'm like, well, okay, it's up to you, I'll give you a ride if you want to. If you don't, I can maybe, and see, I might have had a cell phone. I can't remember. I might have had a cell phone. I said, if you want, maybe I can call. Because in Nebraska at the time, cell phones were just starting to come into play.
Well, there's probably not a signal way out there.
Well, that's the other thing too. So there were some of those things. So it was something like that. It's like, I can maybe go to the next town. I forget what the whole thing was because it's been a number of years. But it was something like that. It's like, if you don't, I can maybe go find somebody and contact, CHP or Wyoming Highway Patrol and, whatever. She's like, no, I'll take a ride. So she gets in, and she has these bags. And I'm like, well, if you're more comfortable, you can put the bags in the back. But she's not, I'll just haul them because she wanted to bury herself under her bags for safety. I got the sense. So we're driving, and I'm just trying to make small talk with her and asking, so why did you get dumped off the bike? And so, she was telling me the story. And so we started to drive, and we finally, it was probably like an hour and a half to her destination. And then, so we get to her town, and I'm like, where do you want me to drop you off at? And she's like, well, just on the highway's fine. I'm like, okay, listen, are you seriously getting off in this town, or is there something else going on? Because, I'm still going down the road and I can take you further if you want. And she's like, okay, fine. I really don't have any money. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm supposed to meet somebody in this town, but they're not quite here yet because they're coming tomorrow because I was supposed to be with my boyfriend and we were going to get this. So I'm like, okay, I'll tell you what, why don't I get your room? You can stay the night in the room, and then I'm going to take off, and then the rest is up to you. So how about I just give you a night? She's like, okay. So we found like some Super 8 or Motel 6 and, whatever. So I was getting ready to leave, and I'm like, hey, anything else? You good? You're good. Okay, fine. Bye. And she hails me down. So I get in the car, and I have to kind of do like a U-turn to exit. She hails me down. And I'm like, what, you okay? Everything okay? She's like, hey, I just want to say thank you because I don't know what I would have done being out there on the road. And, I can never repay you, but what you did, you will never completely fully understand what you did. And to me, it kind of took me aback because to me it was like, I'm thinking I'm just going to help someone out, but I'm not doing anything out of my way because I'm going that way anyways. I'm traveling down the road. Right. But the impact it had on her, and again, being a biker bitch, if I can say that, I'm sure she's probably not treated well. Right. I mean, hell, she got kicked off the bike because of an argument.
But yeah.
So I'm sure she was kind of leery about, me helping as a guy, this and that. Yeah. But she really appreciated it because somebody took the time to, be kind to her and to help her. Now, again, not to say pat me on the back. although I did a good job. No, but it was just, you never know the impact of how it's going to affect somebody if you just do something by helping them out a little bit. Here this lady is probably a hardened gal, I don't know, not used to being treated nice, and she actually came out of her way and stopped me to say, hey, you really appreciate you never understand what you did for me tonight. I can never pay you back, but just know it was the world.
Yeah.
Who knows what happened to her, after that, because I left. I took off.
But that's a great story, and that's an example of the positive side of helping people that we just truly don't know. When we have a heart to give to people, and we have a heart to help people, just like the Good Samaritan story, that person got beat up, and then the traveler, paid for his medical expenses, paid for his, hotel. So in those situations, it's a great example that we truly never know how much we impact people by helping them. But then there's a flip side of stories where we help people and it goes haywire, and then we're left questioning, when do we help? When do we not help? When is it hurting? When are we hurting ourselves? When are we enabling them? It gets a little more tricky and especially when our motive is involved. Like if our motive isn't in the right place, that's a lot of times, I guess, when it goes haywire. But
yeah, and I think each person, you have to decide for yourself what you want to do, how you want to do it. I remember one time I was, again, I don't carry cash, but I was outside of a Taco Bell. I was in the drive-thru. I went to the drive-thru, and it was kind of funny because I forgot my credit card somewhere, and so I made this order. I get to the front. I'm looking, for my card. I can't find my card. I noticed a guy there, with a sign, need money for food or whatever. So I'm like, well, my card. So I told the guy, I'm like, hey, I'll be right back. So I went, got my card, came back because the place I was at the time wasn't too far away. But this time I grabbed a couple bucks off the counter. Because I knew that dude might still be there. And so I'm like, okay, let's just see. Let's just play this out. Because a lot of times what I like to do sometimes is I like to maybe give a couple bucks to kind of see what they do. Because everyone tells you what's going to happen. Don't give money. They're going to drink booze. They're going to go find drugs. We don't know that. So sometimes I'll give a little bit to see what the reaction is. So the guy's outside the Taco Bell. And so I get my order and I pull up and I give him maybe $3. I don't know. The dude took it, and the first thing he did was ran inside the store, into the side of the Taco Bell. So obviously he wanted food. Then I felt bad. I'm like, yeah, I should have gotten some more money. Yeah. But you never know. You never know. So it goes back to the person. You just have to kind of figure for yourself, do I feel comfortable helping? Do I want to help? Do I have the means to help? Yeah. And then you just got to make your own decision and not worry about what other people say because you don't know.
And I think that if we're worried about what they're going to do with it, then we're probably going down the wrong path. But because there are stories where people are taking advantage, they're making a lot of money panhandling. Other stories, people go and they buy drugs and alcohol. But it's the humanity that we're forgetting in those instances. We're annoyed that they're putting us in a situation that we have to decide whether or not we want to give. I mean, deep down, that's what's going on. It's like, this person is sitting there, they're in my face, and now I have to come to terms with myself. Am I going to look at them as a human being whose needs are just as valid as mine, and am I going to help them out? Or am I going to look at them as an object and be annoyed that now I have to go through this process, a struggle within myself? Should I help? Should I not help? And then we start rationalizing and justifying, they want to be there. They're going to use the money for the wrong reasons, so I'm not going to get up. So we start justifying. We need them to be bad so that we can justify not helping. And we don't like having that argument in ourselves, and so we get annoyed that they're there, in the first place. But one other story, and then I'll move on to something else. There was we can never discount how much help somebody, what it means to somebody. We just don't know. So there was a lady sitting outside of a Walmart, and I saw her, and I thought, okay, I have water in my car, and for some reason this voice in my head said, and I was kind of like looking around my car. I'm like, I don't have anything to give her, right? Because I love to give water and stuff, and all I had was this bag of peanuts. And for a snack. And I thought, that's dumb. I'm not going to give her a bag of nuts. And this voice is just like, give her the bag of nuts. And it just wouldn't let go of me. So I'm like, I hate this. So I went around the parking lot, and I came out and I said, hey, how you doing? And she had this dog with her. And I said, I'm so sorry. I said, I would love to help you, but the only thing that I have in my car is this bag of nuts. Would you like to have it? And she like broke into tears and started crying. And she's like, my dog is so hungry and he loves nuts.
Wow.
And she says, thank you. Oh my gosh. And she says, and then she turned to the dog. She's like, look, she called him by name. Look what I have for you. And he was all excited. Then she wanted to pray with me, which was weird. We're out on this public corner. She put her arms around me, grabbed me by the neck, and was sobbing and just started praying and thanking God for this bag of nuts. So we just never know like what we have to offer. It just seemed very awkward, to me to do that. But we never know, the impact that it's gonna have. And so I have learned to follow that voice. Sometimes I've given people food. I've come out of a restaurant before, and it's like, hey, turn left and. There's this homeless person over there that really wants. There was one guy that was like angry. He was a homeless person, and he was really like in a bad way, just super angry, like probably schizophrenic or something. And I started to approach him, and he starts yelling at me. He's like, "Don't come any closer! Don't come any closer!" And that voice in my head came in again and said, "It's chicken." I was like, okay. So then I repeated it. It's chicken, and he immediately stopped and calmed down. And just like didn't know what to say, so I put the food down on the corner. I said at the sidewalk, I said, "It's chicken. I'm just going to leave it right here." And I turned around and I walked back in my car. And then he just stood there and waited for me to drive away. And then he went and got it. So I think from a humanity standpoint, we can definitely help people more than what we think that we can that are on the street. I mean, they're fellow human beings and they're in need, and regardless of how they got there, regardless of what's keeping them there, I think it's our job to help. But what about people that like our family members, our neighbors, our kids, our family, people that are just so dysfunctional, and you help them and it doesn't make it any better. And you help them, thinking that if I just do this, then maybe they'll stop drinking. Maybe they'll start using their money better. Maybe they'll be more responsible. Maybe they'll, or even at work, people that don't do their job. So then their coworkers like, oh my gosh, if I don't do this, then, the work's not going to move. So I have to do it. And then there's anger and resentment because we're not holding people accountable. So the flip side of helping people can be very toxic and can be very damaging because it can allow people to continue dysfunctional behavior.
Well, one thing real quick before I get to that, which you brought up the point, was the lady hugged you. Okay. Yeah. You allowed her to touch you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Which is, I think one of the things that we do is we dehumanize people that are on the street. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if she was clean or not.
No.
But it's like that, and that's the point. And sometimes what happens with people, I've noticed, is that they become so dehumanized themselves that because they're ostracized. Nobody wants to touch them. Right. Nobody wants to interact with them. Obviously, everyone looks the other way because they don't want to be, bothered by them. Mm-hmm. And so just the mere fact, too, that she had human interaction or human contact, I would imagine had like a huge impact. Mm-hmm. But that's always the Larry thing. It's like, I'm going to go, the fist bumping thing now is cool so that, you don't have to shake hands.
Right.
But even then it's like, okay, I'm going to fist bump this guy and I'm going to end up with, hepatitis or something, because that's just the fear. Mm-hmm. But what we don't understand is that sometimes people are just needing that human touch.
Right.
For example, and then I'll segue into what you just mentioned. So when I was working at a radio station, the radio station you mentioned on the last podcast, KKLA, we would do a show, it was the Frank Sontag show, and we would go down to the Union Rescue Mission during Thanksgiving, and they would have a big turkey meal for Thanksgiving, turkey fest. But we would go down there and we'd broadcast from the rescue mission with Andy Bales, and there'd be people down there. And I would watch the people interact from the homeless shelter with the homeless people. Mm-hmm. And they treated them just like anybody else. They would yell at them if they got out of line. Hey, you stay in line. What are you doing? Get out of line. Hey, you can't do that. So they jump on them. Mm-hmm. They wasn't like, oh, it's okay, Mm-hmm. Two, they had compassion on, oh, you need food? Yeah, get in line here. There's going to be food, and they just treat them like people. Mm-hmm. And then they would go up and they'd like hug people. They'd be giving these hugs. I'm thinking to myself, you guys are nuts. You guys probably are like a petri dish of all kinds of germs. But to them, I learned it didn't matter because they're people. Mm-hmm. You got to humanize them. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes there are ramifications of that. I know Andy Bales, he lost his foot.
I was going to say, didn't he?
Yeah, he had an infection.
He had an infection from the streets.
Got
gangrene and had to be amputated.
And,
right?
And, yeah, they said cut it off.
Yep.
So there are risks. So don't get me wrong. Don't go around hugging everybody.
Yeah.
But it's also the humanization of it. But here's the other thing. From that same trip, because we did it like I think 3 or 4 years I was there, I started to notice that there was a lot of people with iPhones on the streets. I'm thinking, hey, what's going on? How do these people have iPhones? They might have been the fancy ones, but everybody's got a cell phone.
Right.
You know, you can tell there's like degrees of people in need. There's the ones that have been on the streets for years. There's the ones that have been on the street for years and are probably not all there mentally.
Right.
Then there's like some normal looking people with iPhones and you know, earbuds up. So I started asking, and they were like, well, you know, here's a mom with 2 kids. She's working a job that maybe pays $12, $13 an hour. Okay, maybe it's minimum wage now, 15 in LA County. But rent keeps going up. All of a sudden, rent goes up, and now she can't afford rent.
Right.
She has a job. She has 2 kids. She's able to provide food. She can't have a place to stay because rent is too damn high. She's on the streets. So they come down to the rescue mission for shelter for the kids. She can pay for everything except rent.
Yeah.
I think we're starting to see a lot of that type of thing happening here, especially like in LA, where people just can't afford living arrangements, or the cost of living goes up and they're not getting the cost of living increases. And so they're completely capable and they just can't make it because they're already working 2 jobs. They're working 2 jobs. They're a single parent with multiple kids, or even 1 kid working 2 jobs, and they still can't make ends meet because the cost of living is up. And so who are we to sit there and judge people because we don't know their circumstances? Go get another job. She's already working 2 jobs.
Right.
She's already working 80 hours a week.
Right.
You can't afford rent. You can't afford a place to stay. And so I think we have to get away from judging. And so now to get to your question is, how do we help those people? You know, I think it's more difficult to help family than anything else because there's that family dynamic of expectation. Family expects us to help them. But it's also, I guess, the way in which that help is being received. If it's appreciative, if it's trying to get improvement, if it's, you know, whatever the case may be, as opposed to, like I said, enabling, it's expected, it's demanded. There's no, I'm going to try to get it back to you. There's nothing like that, you know. And that's hard. The family thing is hard to do because family sometimes can take advantage of family members, and it's difficult. But for me personally, whenever I decide, and you make up your own mind on how you do with you helping people, but for me, whenever I decide to help somebody, I expect nothing in return. If I give money, I'm not expecting it to be returned. If they want to return it and pay you back, hey, great, fine. I think that's responsible and good on their part. But if they don't want to and they can't or whatever, I don't expect it because I'm not doing it for the return. I'm not doing it for, you know, the payback.
But what if it's a good thing for them to learn responsibility and accountability, to learn to pay that money back? Because that's part of the way that the world works. Like if you are, if we want to live, you know, in a house and have groceries and a car and insurance and all the expenses that comes from living, we have to learn to pay our way, you know, to make that happen. I understand that there's certain circumstances that make that difficult because of where we live, but it's really good for people to be accountable. It's really good for people to be responsible for what they're asking for. No, I think that's a good thing, but I also think it depends on the circumstance. And I think for the most part, for me, when it comes to the helping aspect, it's more along the lines of people that need it, that I'm not trying to teach them anything. You know, it's just to assist them. You know, assist them because they're at a down spot in life and they might need a little help. I mean, I know times in my radio career, because I bounced from town to town and I made like little money in small town Iowa, that I needed assistance. You know, I was still able to pay the rent and do all that, but you know, I needed a few extra bucks to get through the end of the month. And the people were like, don't worry about paying me back because you're not in a position to pay me back because the next month you need the money you'd pay me back to get your groceries for the next month, you know, type of thing. Right. So I think maybe my process is coming from a little different perspective. But I would imagine, like, if you are in a situation where, okay, go back to the homeless shelter, the people are you know, yelling
at the homeless people to stay in line. You know, they're expecting them to follow the rules. They're expecting them, no, you can't have endless amount of food. You have a plate and this is what you get because everybody else needs something. So they're expected to have some rules in there. So I think that's okay too. I mean, you know, if you are going to help somebody, it's okay to have rules and expectations from them. And I think that's fine, but it also depends on the circumstance. If you're dealing with somebody that has, you know, addictive behavior, then that's a tough call. I don't know what to do, but I'm sure you're going to get to the point where you're probably not going to be able to help them because they need a change. If you're dealing with a young kid, yeah, you want to raise them up so that they learn to have responsibility. If it's an elder parent, you know, I think about my parents getting older, you know, at some point I'm going to have to take care of them. Or if unfortunately one of them at some point moves on, you know, and the other one is left behind, I'm going to have to take care of them, you know. But I'm not going to expect anything back. You know, I mean, they gave to me. So I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just missing the point on what you're saying because I kind of understand it, but I also kind of understand when it's giving, you give sacrificially and you don't give in return, and you don't give to get return. And for me, you know, I know we're talking about it, and I've been sharing some stories, but I give in secret. I don't tell people what I do. I mean, like share the story of the drive and maybe the couple bucks at the Taco Bell or whatever. Yeah. But you know, helping other people, it's just a personal thing, and I guess I just try to understand the situation and try to read their situation, and then make a determination based on what I think, you know. Yeah. Well, I guess the
point that I'm trying to get at is that I hear a lot of situations where family members are. There's a lot of chaos and a lot of dysfunction, and a lot of people expect that the help will come, but then they're not responsible with that help. And I think that is where a lot of
tough love
disagreements come in families, and a lot of friendships where people are taking advantage. There's a story that I heard from our neighbor where both of their kids are adult kids, and they both needed financial help for different reasons. One kid was starting a business. The other one was trying to pay back some debt. And the one that was starting a business was very responsible with and it was the understanding that it was a loan. It just wasn't, you know, a gift. But this one was very responsible, you know, paid the money back. The other kid didn't pay the money back, didn't make an attempt to pay the money back, and then the parents were upset because it was agreed that this was a loan, you know, that it wasn't just a handout. And so, but this other kid that didn't pay the money back was not, had a record of not being responsible in the first place. And so in that situation, if the person is not responsible in the first place and they're looking for a handout to get bailed out of a situation, and a lot of people will do that. A lot of people will expect you to, just because it's family or just because you're friends, will expect you to bail them out of a situation. And a lot of people will give in to that. There was a guy I heard on the radio the other day, the woman was saying, oh yeah, my husband's in jail and he molested these kids, and he's telling me there was some sort of a financial settlement, and he wanted the financial settlement to go to him to help him get out of jail with his legal team or whatever. And the DJs were like, absolutely not one penny should go to him. Like, it should go to the victims, you know, for their support, for their well-being. But she was literally torn that, you know, he's going to be mad, and they're like, of course he's going to be mad, and it's my husband, but he molested kids. Like, so I think sometimes we think that we're supposed to help people that just because of who they are, and that's where it's part of it is tough love and part of it is boundaries. Like, we don't want to be like, you have a good heart, and I've heard many stories of things that you've done, and I applaud you for that. I think that's amazing. But there's another side of relationships where people don't they're not making they just can't get out of their own way, and they expect handouts, and then you get the family members like, oh well, it's family, I have to. Well, no, you don't, because it's hurting them more than helping. Right. And so then that's the question. And even like a kid, it's like our kids, like, how much do you help? You know, they're not working, they're not there was another a story, a very famous story, where two parents, this husband and wife, went into the psychiatrist office, a therapist office, and they said, we have a problem, you know, our son has a problem, and the son wasn't there. It was just the two parents. And the guy says, the therapist is like, okay, well, what's wrong with your son? And they said, oh, well, he's in Vail skiing right now. And the therapist is like, okay, well, that doesn't sound like a problem. And they said, well, it is because he's gone to 3 different colleges. He keeps flunking out, and we keep getting him into another college, and then he flunks out again. And he's not, working. He's not doing anything with his life. And so the therapist is like, well, if he's not working and he didn't go to school, like, how is it that he's in Vail with his friends? Like, how does that happen? And the parents said, well, we paid for it because this whole group of kids were getting together, and we didn't want him to miss out because it's like a little reunion thing. And so, we wanted him to, go and, have fun. And the therapist was like, your son I can't help you with your son. Like, he doesn't have a problem. And they're like, what do you mean? He doesn't stay in school. He doesn't work. Like, how does he? And they're like, excuse me. He's like, he doesn't have a problem. Like, but I can help you. You have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that type of stuff that we have to decide when we are helping people. I'm going to grab my water.
I guess I just never really kind of been in that situation. So that's probably why I don't really have an answer, because I've never really been in that type of situation where you're kind of enabling people. But yeah, it makes sense that, if someone is going to be taking advantage of a situation like that, then yeah, you want to be able to curb that and make them responsible. And yeah, enabling is never a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
Enabling in anything, enabling students, enabling, loved ones, enabling the panhandler on the street corner, enabling, anybody is never a good thing. But I also think too, there's a completely different dynamic when you're dealing with helping somebody that's a stranger versus helping somebody that's a family member, even helping somebody that's a friend.
Mm-hmm.
There's a different dynamic because, like you said, it's one end you're giving, they're receiving. Most of the time, if it's a stranger, you're not really caring so much how they receive it or what their reaction to the reception of it is, because you don't know them. A friend is probably going to be more appreciative of it and going to try to, do something to, whether it's pay you back or at least show appreciation or at least acknowledge the fact that you helped them. At least in my experience, that's how it's been. The family member, at some point it does become enabling. I mean, you think about, what is it, the Hangover movies, and the one kid, the one guy with the wacky last name that drugs everybody all the time.
Right.
He's completely enabled. He's sitting there and saying, "Mom, where's the this and where's the that?" And so yeah, I mean, at some point there becomes a time where you need to, cut the cord and make them responsible. So you can't go to Aspen or Vail or wherever you wanted to go. Well, too bad. If it's, he needs something to eat because he's homeless, well, then that's another story. If the kid is even, I mean, I think it's harder too when you deal with like drugs, for example, because I've seen some situations where parents try to help and they do the tough love and they do the good love, and they're okay, we're going to help you. No, we're not going to help you. Now we're going to help you. No, we're not going to help you. And they just don't know what to do because the response to the tough love or the good love isn't helping, and all the addictive person wants is the benefit.
Right.
So it's hard to say,
Right.
It's hard to say, but I think what I would say is that you're going to have to listen to that voice that told you to give the peanuts, or listen to the voice that's going to tell you whether this is a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
And then maybe seek counseling, for you, like not the person that you're helping, but for you. Am I doing the right thing? Get advice. I don't mean counseling, go to a shrink, but just get advice from other people. Hey, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing this? Is there other ways I could be helping them? And
I think if it's helping them move forward in a positive way to join life and to be productive in life, then it's okay. But if it's causing them to be stagnant and to not move forward, and it's causing dysfunction in their life or allowing them to continue to be dysfunctional, then we have to say no.
Right. Because I've been in situations where I've helped someone and I was like, dude, I think I'm enabling them. But they need the help. But here's the thing. In the end, it turned out where, I was enabling them for a little bit, but I was keeping them sustained, and they eventually turned their life around. Well, not turned life around, but they eventually caught traction in life and was able to find a good job, a place to stay, and now they're working and they're way better off. I'm thinking if I would have bailed on them, what would it have been like? Would he be worse off? I mean, I don't know. So it's hard to say. So like for me, it just goes to the standpoint of you got to read the situation. You're going to know in your gut what to do. and then just do it and don't expect anything in return. And if that does get returned, great. If you make arrangements that maybe someday down the road it'll get returned, great. Whatever the case may be, I think that's up to the individual people, the parties involved.
Yeah, I don't know that getting it returned is the point, as more as knowing like where that line is.
Yeah.
I think that's where people struggle is knowing, like they feel bad saying no. And so it keeps them in this perpetual state of helping when it's actually hurting them. It's making the situation worse. And I know at work, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of people who will pick up the slack for their coworkers because their coworker isn't doing their job. So then this person will come in and do it, kind of clean up the mess. Okay. And they're resentful for doing that, and they're angry at the person because the person's not doing their job. But then this person keeps cleaning up after them, and so now they're resentful and they're angry, and it makes like a terrible culture, whether it's at work or whether it's at home, because it just breeds a lot of resentment. And so the person has to stop cleaning up after the other person. But we have a hard time doing that because we say, okay, well, the consequence is the work's not going to get done. It's not going to flow. And then we're all going to get in trouble. Okay. So which is better, to get in trouble and to highlight the problem and to get to the root of what's really going on, or to be resentful and angry and get more and more resentful and angry and ruin, the relationships in the process? Like, which is, you have to and we are so afraid to go back and to look at the root and to deal with the actual problem. We just want to keep covering it up and keep helping, and we're actually making the situation worse.
See, the radio business is full of that, where people drop the ball and you have to cover because the show has to go on the air.
Right.
So I can understand that perspective. Do your own damn job. But on the flip side, it's, in the radio business, it's for the common good of the show. Mm-hmm. And I've been fortunate enough to have good working conditions with my coworkers. Yes, you. And so we work together as a team. They cover my inadequacies, I cover them. So again, this is a unique dynamic. But yeah, there's been other times where you need a spot that is missing, a commercial that's missing. And so you go try to track down whoever's supposed to do it, and it's the wrong one. And there's been times where I'm like, okay, this production manager, screw him. I'm not going to help. And the commercial doesn't get played.
Right.
Oh, I like that guy. He's a good, cool guy. So I'm going to cover for him. Mm-hmm. But then you go tell him, hey, dude, you kind of messed up here. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. So I guess for me, my perspective in the radio business is, one, be nice to the producers. Shit runs downhill. But then two, it's also most of the time they're going to be accepting or take responsibility for it, because we've had people, and I know some of the people I'm talking about, they've messed up big time, but we've had to cover for them, and then we just let them know, and then oh, I'm so sorry. Because sometimes it happens. Things start to look up. But if it becomes problematic, then for a couple people in the radio business, I've come across where they just are poor workers, and they just F up all the time, and then we just let them die. Right. Here's we've done with the life ropes, throwing you the lifelines, you're on your own, and you sink or swim, and they don't, they sink because they can't cut it.
Right.
So I think it's a fine line, but I think, again, it goes back to each person has to decide for themselves what they want to do, what they think is good, what they think is enabling or not. And then sometimes, it might require somebody on the outside maybe stepping in, being like, hey, what you're doing, you probably isn't the best. There was a guy in Nebraska. He was a morning show guy, and the news guy was new to our station, and he wanted to be the morning DJ, but he was the news guy. He didn't like doing news, and he was taking more and more and more airtime away from the morning DJ. So I went to the guy and said, hey, dude, this guy's just vying for your job. He's abusing the situation. He's taking it away. And the morning guy was like, well, I'm just trying to be nice and give him some airtime and stuff. I'm like, no, dude. So I kind of intervened because I saw it. And then they opened up the other guy's eyes, the DJ, and he's like, oh, that's true. I see it now. And so he cut the guy off. So sometimes, we're not even aware of what we're doing. And so it's okay if you're on the outside maybe to say something too and be like, hey, you know what? This is how I see it. Just letting you know. Do what you want, and they might be no, or they might be okay, I see it too, and change. It's hard because we as society want to help people. We as society want people to feel good. We want society to be successful. We do try to push people away that we don't think are worthy, like someone on the street. We like look at them and it's the bag person with the shopping cart full of crap, and they probably haven't showered in forever, and so we look the other way because we don't want them to be like, oh, hey, don't ask me for money. Because we don't like the negative. We talked about it last episode about, the performances and so forth, and how, the performances went with J-Lo and Shakira, but yet we don't want to understand that sometimes the provocative dancing that we see, that there's another side to that, which is, sex trafficking. The Super Bowl had huge sex trafficking, and prostitution ran amok, and the cities try to crack down. We push that to the side. Instead, we hear the headlines of who won the game, how much each Super Bowl ad cost, what's the best Super Bowl, the good part of it.
Right.
So that's what we like to focus on as humans. And so as we help people, we like to see the good in everybody, and sometimes the good just isn't there. And sometimes we can see it ourselves, or sometimes we have to be reminded by somebody else. But ultimately, for me, it goes back to just, what do you think you should be doing and how can you do it? And for me, I've never really been in that position where I've had to not help somebody because I felt it was detrimental to them. Because I also tried to take a look at the long picture. Because like I told that story, if I would have gave up on this one guy, even though I felt I was enabling him, he might not have made it to where he is now. And now I maybe enabled him a little bit, but he was able to gain traction in life, get a job, get settled, find a place, and now he seems to be doing decent. If I gave up on him, I don't know. I mean, so it's hard to say because I try to look long term. How is it going to be in 5-10 years if I help this person out? If you're a family member and you've been helping someone for 5-10 years and it's not working out, okay, well then maybe it's time to cut the cord. I don't know. It's hard. Family's hard because, we've talked about in podcasts before, my family dynamic. Family's hard.
Yeah.
But I will always be there for them. And if they ever needed anything, I'd be there for them. Just call me and I'll be there. If I got that call, in the dead of the night, I'd be there with anybody.
So if they squander away all of their money, like purposely, they're not responsible, they squander away all their money, they're going to, be homeless or something. And so what do you...
I'll find them a room at the homeless shelter. Like help them in that way, maybe.
Right. So you wouldn't just like rescue them in a way that...
No. Helping, I think maybe this is what we're missing. Helping and rescuing are two different things.
Right.
Helping is, okay, you just blew all your money, but now you're homeless. Well, let's find you a place.
Yeah.
Let's find you a plan that can get you back on your feet. Let's find you a job. Okay, I might give you a one-time temporary assistance to get you maybe a couple nights in a hotel room or whatever, but that's it, and here's the plan.
Right.
So that, I think, is helping.
Right.
Even though they messed up, you're helping them because you're trying to find a resolution to their problem and get them on a plan to...
Right. So helping them doesn't necessarily mean continue on the path that they've been on.
No, it's like, okay, you blew your money. I'm not going to give you money, and you continue to blow it.
Right.
That's a different story.
So
I think maybe that's the premise that maybe I missed earlier. What you were talking about was helping versus rescuing.
Right.
It's two different things. And to me, I'm talking about just helping, not necessarily rescuing. Rescuing may be like a one-time emergency thing. Hey, I lost my job, or I'm a gambling addict, or I'm an addict and I blew all my money and I'm now kicked out of my place. I need help. Okay, I will help you. And so I will rescue you in that moment, but I'm not going to enable you to continue drinking all that. Let's find counseling. Let's find help. Let's find other people that are more equipped to help you.
Yeah.
Gambling addiction, whatever. Just throwing out some examples. But let's find people that can help you and get you a game plan to get you back on track, and then turn it over to the experts.
Right.
Because I'm not qualified to help addiction.
No.
And I don't want to.
And I think that we get sucked into helping them because we feel we don't want them to be in their own mess.
Right. But sometimes
because then it's also a reflection of us. But we need to let them be in their own mess. That's the only way.
And sometimes, a pig wallows in the mire because pigs don't have sweat glands.
Right.
And the mud cools them down.
Off. Yeah.
So in case you didn't know that. So again, sometimes wading in the mire, as the Doors say, wallowing in the mire can be a good thing because it might wake them up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just depends. And it goes back to what I think people have said, what people's experience are. If your experience with someone has been a good in helping them and they're appreciative and you see the future outcome, I think it's just an individualized thing. And the main thing we have to keep in mind is don't dehumanize people because of it. No matter what it is, the person that had all the money that blew it, or the person on the street that has nothing. Don't dehumanize them. They are human. 2, do what you think is best. that you're willing to do. Don't put yourself in a bind helping them. If you can legitimately help them,
right.
Don't put yourself in trouble to help someone else. You got to take care of yourself first, and then kind of go from there and see what it is. And then don't be afraid to seek help. I mean, there's been times where, like that one guy I was telling you about, I had to, hey, can you help me help this guy? And they're like, what's up? I tell the story like, okay, I'll help you. I couldn't help him anymore because I kind of extended myself. Now I got other people to help.
Right.
And that and again, we didn't give up on the guy, and he turned his life around, and he's doing pretty good now. So sometimes I might seek help with help.
Yeah. So it's hard. Yeah, we definitely have to do that. Sometimes it's hard because there's a lot of people that will come into the church looking for a handout. And I know our church will say, okay, but let's get you into Financial Peace University. Let's get you into classes. Let's get you into things that will help you get your life back together. And they don't want any part of that. They just want the handout. And there's so many people who think that they're helping by giving them the handout. They'll give them clothes, they'll give them money, they'll give them all this stuff. And then they're disillusioned because that person doesn't appreciate it, because they don't, they just blow everything, and then they're right back being needy again. And it's exhausting to help somebody, with groceries every week and financial every week. And it's like, well, but you're not helping them in a way. You're giving them a fish, but you're not teaching them how to fish.
Right.
And so it's doing a lot more damage to both of you than if you would, like you said, help them get. Sometimes we think the help is in the moment, the food or the clothes. But a lot of times help is, let me help you learn how to take care of yourself. Let me help you learn how to manage your money so that you're not in this perpetual situation.
Yeah, giving the rescue plan to succeed.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't want that. They just want the handout, and then the people helping them continue to give the handout, and then they're exhausted and disillusioned, and then they don't want to help anybody, like, oh, they just don't appreciate. Well, you really, we have to be discerning. We have to have discernment on who to help. And the type of help that they need that's best for them to move forward, rather than just stay in their, situation.
Final thoughts?
I think that was my
That was our thought?
Yeah, I think so. I think we just have to be better at boundaries, better at discerning, better at, be cheerful givers, but not just expecting that everybody is going to handle it the same way. We have to have discernment when we're helping.
Yeah. 2 Steps Ahead podcast, highlighting the shit we've been in so you don't have to. Instagram at Edem Rocks, EIDEM ROCKS. Also 2 Steps Ahead podcast Instagram. You can find our shows there on IGTV. You can also find us on YouTube if you want to watch on YouTube the videos. The shows are on SoundCloud. Link is in my bio. I think it's also on the 2 Steps Ahead podcast bio. But you can also go to Spotify, Pandora, iHeartMedia, all the major platforms to listen to the show. It's 2 Steps Ahead podcast. Don't forget the podcast, otherwise you might get something else. Instagram?
I am at Tara Hoke Shiro, TaraHokeschiro.
Hey, so how about that $100?
No.
Don't go to her help. She won't help you. She's jaded.
I'm not helping.
Jaded. Anyways, hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Do tell a friend. Until next time, you guys have a great one. We'll see you down the road here on 2 Steps Ahead podcast.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.